Goodbye, Final Fantasy 14. Oh boy.
Today, I want to talk to you guys about why I'm leaving Final Fantasy XIV, my reasons for doing so, the impact on the content going forward, not just within my controller guide series, but also how it will impact our...
Thank you, Asmon. What's that thing he has there? What causes that? What's that little balance thing? I used to have one as a browser add-on, but that one looks a lot cleaner.
Our collabs over at Work to Game and news coverage, as well as FanFest. So this video is going to be quite detailed. I'm going to talk about my reasons first and foremost, and then I'm going to cover, kind of my plan going forward. If you guys want, you can jump to any specific section of this video that interests you the most. Now, that being said, I know this video probably will upset some people, and
that's exactly what I was hoping for. Yes, if it's not going to make anybody mad, I don't want to hear about it. Who cares?
Same time, I know there'll probably be people who are rejoicing that I'm leaving Final Fantasy XIV, and to both of those groups, hopefully you guys have the best day ever. I only wish good things for you always. But I consider myself an honest person. I always try to, be really honest with each and every one of you about how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and that's what this video is going to be.
Great.
If anybody's been following my content for any period of time, none of this should come off as a surprise. We probably had these conversations more in private and on stream, but I want to be honest with you guys. I want to be direct with you guys, and I'm going to tell you what's going on. Now, if you guys want to see a review of Endwalker, I just posted that over on Ginger XIV. You can go check that out. I've got some plans for that channel, but we're not going to cover that here in this video. But there's three main reasons why I'm leaving Final Fantasy XIV. And
number one is it's full of weebs. Yeah, that's probably going to be number one for sure, guys. 100%.
I want to be also very direct and not have set false expectations. This isn't a break. I've been and have taken breaks from Final Fantasy XIV. This is something very, very different. I'm actually not burned out of Final Fantasy XIV. This is something very, very different because I've experienced those things in the past. I feel like Final Fantasy XIV, I'm looking for them to invite me back into the game, and maybe 7.0 will be that re-invitation to the game, but don't misunderstand me. I'm not committing or promising that I will be back for 7.0 or 8.0. It's really going to be on Square Enix and to see if they kind of make a game that I want to play and I want to invest my time in, but that hasn't been the case, and that hasn't been the case for a while. I think it's been the story that's kind of held me on. Story's been completed, and after having finished Omni 90, I can tell you that experience was the hardest thing I've had to do. And in regards to that, let's go ahead and dive into my reasons for leaving.
I think that's at the end of Wrath, that's what a lot of people did too, is they felt like at the end of Wrath that a Lich King, that's kind of like the end of the story. So yeah, I can see other people quitting Final Fantasy after Endwalker just on a narrative level.
And I think that, so in the comments and stuff, there is some stuff going on there that they're all thrilled. They're all just immensely moved by this. The reason he's talking slowly is, first of all, Brian and I are long-winded. But second of all, beyond that, you want to get this right. If you're trying to share your reasons, you kind of get one shot at goodbye. So I think he did a good job of kind of setting the tone, and he time-stamped it. So you could skip a section if you're done with that section. If you've gotten enough from it and you want to jump around, you know where the next section starts. So I think stalling has value in this context. I don't know. I think it's fair. The Omni 90 thing, it being hard, there's nothing difficult about Omni 90, but if you're not liking a game, it's a lot of time on classes that may not be your favorite class. If you're using things like Frontlines or Wondrous Tales to level, you can actually avoid playing the class and still level it. But if you're actually spending time power leveling it, doing Endwalker dungeons or doing even just tribal quests, you're on that class. And so if something doesn't feel good, if the way that class moves through things like gap closers and stuff like that, ranged attacks, and those don't feel good, if the DPS rotation at its core is not satisfying, you're kind of just grinding. And some people really thrive on that grind. They thrive on that kind of I'm uncomfortable, and at the end it's going to pay off like the cold side of a pillow. Like I'm going to just lay here knowing I'm uncomfortable, and the longer I wait, the more satisfying it's going to be when I flip that pillow over and it's all nice and cold on my head. And other people, that's not really what they want from video games. And as much as Brian at past points in his life has talked about liking the grind in games, when I see him play Final Fantasy XI, and when I watch him play that, or when I watch him play New World, or when I watch him play Guild Wars, or when I watch him play 14, from an outsider's perspective, like I don't know what's on his inner monologue, but from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't ever seem like he's having fun with the actual grindy parts. And that's fine. Like, especially in games like 14, where the grinds are all optional. Nobody told you to hit Omni 90. And a lot of what made him feel like Omni 90 was a requirement is that he has become somebody who is known for putting out controller guides. And he started by just putting out controller guides for the classes he knew and the classes he liked. But people asked for him at other ones, and they said, could you do the same thing for over here? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to learn the way you play so I could share this with you. And it became this kind of service, this active service to the community and saying, I can put these out for you. And it teaches me about the jobs a little bit. And it's not necessarily my favorite thing to level up and master those jobs, but it is rewarding. And at this point, he's committed to putting all of the controller guides out for each expansion. Kind of moving forward until he takes a break from the game one day, which is now. And so he wants to finish Endwalker first. And so he continued on into Omni 90, even when he was already starting to feel this, because he wanted to get those controller guides out. And you have to be level 90 to get that done.
Final Fantasy XIV, just so we're all on the same page.
Okay.
I've been covering Final Fantasy XIV for over 13 years. Longer if you actually count Project Rapture. This equates to easily over 120,000 hours. I have bled Final Fantasy XIV. I have slept, I have dreamed, I have daydreamed, I've written, and
There's no way it's 120,000 hours, by the way.
See, thank you. Like that number drove me nuts.
Because I've played WoW. No, you do the math. Because, like,
He's counting every hour since he started covering the game.
I played WoW probably on average every single day since I started playing the game in 2006. On average, probably 7 hours a day. And I only have, like, maybe 35,000, 40,000 hours. It's impossible to have that much time invested into the game.
Been a part of this community before it even was a community, before there was even a game. I don't know why this game just captured my attention as a Final Fantasy fan, as an 11 player looking to see what this next generation Final Fantasy game could be. So it's been an incredible journey. During said time for this game, I wasn't even married, I had no kids. Now here I am as a father of 5, and that's really the first reason I want to invest more time in my family. Clearly they are everything to me, and I've been coaching in my family. Clearly they are.
Okay, so yeah, anyway, I can see that, absolutely. I definitely agree.
Oh, I appreciate that he wanted the visuals and the audio to both reach a climax for him before he discussed it.
Agree with him? Is it like, yeah, you've got to put more time into your family and to other stuff as well. I mean, 100%. I get it. Everybody gets that. I don't know why you have to quit entirely to do that. And I feel like there's multiple reasons. So it's not like this is just, oh, I'm quitting because I'm not satisfied with, the amount of time I'm spending with my family. I think there's probably other stuff too. But like, I've never really understood that, because like you just play the game less doesn't mean you have to quit entirely. But that's how I look at it.
Everything.
And Asmongold's talked about this. He said, there were some people that were saying like, I wish I could be you, and he's like, no, you don't, because if you wanted to be me, you would be me. Like, there's nothing complicated or hard about, he's lived on food stamps before. He's had crappy jobs before. If you just want a crappy job that lets you live in a house, any house, and you just want to play video games 7 to 8 hours a day while drinking Dr. Pepper from a styrofoam cup, it doesn't cost that much. He makes way too much money for the cost of his lifestyle. So he does not need to be as successful as he is monetarily to maintain what he's doing. He's been maintaining what he's doing since long before he made this much money doing it, because it's very affordable. So if you wanted to be him, you would, because there's nothing hard about what he's doing. He drives a 2005 Mustang. You can go price a 2005 Mustang. Kelly Blue Book, 2005 Mustang. You can go price this and say, how much is a 2005 Mustang worth today? It's worth somewhere between $1,400 and $9,000. So you could go buy like the best 2005 Mustang available for $9,000. Like it's not an impossible to attain level. But he's saying you're taking the glamorous parts of Asmongold's life and you're wanting those, but realize you'd have to give up all the things that he doesn't have. And so there's been a lot of things that, like, Asmongold has made choices with where to prioritize his life that, you know, he doesn't have a wife and kids. And maybe you like that you do. So maybe what you really, I think his exact example when he went over this was, maybe what you need to do is you need to tell your spouse 1 weekend a year or two weekends a year, I just want to go and like rent a place, or you guys all leave and I just want to be a complete degenerate and not shower and play video games 24/7 and just be a sweaty gamer and then go back to my life. But you don't really want to do that. So I think what Brian wants from Final Fantasy, he feels he can't get without giving up other priorities in his life. But then when he tries to give specific examples, other people who have a different balance of priorities, maybe they don't have 5 kids, maybe they don't have, you know, they don't want to go do stand-up comedy 1 or 2 nights a week, maybe they don't play other MMOs, maybe they don't, you know, have side projects or have run their own business or whatever, then they're able to obtain the exact goals he listed and have a wife and kids. So it's when you see, oh, well, all he is a father and a husband and plays Final Fantasy 14, and he says he doesn't have time to raid. Well, I have a wife and kids, and I raid. What the hell? Okay, but we all have exactly 24 hours in the day, and what he's saying is that within all the things I spend my time on, I'm at capacity, and Savage isn't getting done. And if you added more time, I don't know that Savage is the immediate place I would put hour number 25 or 26.
To me, and I've been coaching soccer, been coaching baseball, we've been riding bikes, we've been doing so many fun things.
Yeah.
And what I had to do to help get the content out, especially for, and I'm going to finish the controller, guys, but we'll talk about that in a second. But I would be getting up at 5 a.m. every day. I'd be going to bed after 10. Like, these are some very long days that I have to be as a provider for the family, but also try to be present for the family, and at the same time also working on content. People will have often asked, how
I see a lot of people posting over here that it's all wife aggro, that it's spousal, and there is this idea in gaming that I see a lot in, like, will your wife let you game? Will your wife allow you to game? And I have some friends that have, like, perpetuated that into, like, I go on a guy's ski trip once a year, and and some of the guys that are always on the edge of whether or not they get to go, they talk about, like, will my wife let me go? Will she allow me to go? I just like to get out in front of that and say, like, I don't think that's a healthy state to be in a relationship. And I think that should probably we should probably point out that there are other ways to be in a relationship besides one being like the dominant parent and you're saying, like, mommy, may I? I think there's this idea that sometimes my wife and I get asked, like, I get asked by the other guys, how is it that your wife lets you go? And she gets asked, like, when she had a happy hour for work this last week, and they're like, you know, your husband just lets you go out to... No. Because my wife's an adult and I trust and respect her. And so if she says she wants to go do that and we don't have other commitments and we don't have other goals and objectives for us as a couple that disalign with that, then that's just what she's going to do. And so, like, if I get up early in the morning and I say I want to go for a run, she didn't let me go for a run. I just did as an adult that has my own choices. So, like, as far as this wife aggro thing, like, if anybody's in that relationship, I would just say, like, that just feels like a way to breed resentment. Because now you're saying that anytime your wife doesn't let you go, you don't get to do the thing you want to do. And that you now owe your wife for letting you have free time. And I just think that, like, if that's going either direction, there's something really unhealthy there. And Brian uses it as jokes sometimes. Like when people donate money on his stream, I hear him joke about like, oh, when she lets me have some of our money, because she is the one who organizes the budget primarily in their family. And so she is more aware of where their financial goals are, because that's the role that she takes on. And so he uses, she lets me have some of the money. And like, I just don't like it. I don't like it when anybody does it. It's not a dig on any one person's marriage or your shtick. I just, as a general rule, would start to question why any adult is saying that another adult is letting them do anything. Because would I go on a ski trip if my wife and I had 5 kids and she's like, hey, it's really hard on me when you go out of town and I have a work conference that week? No, I wouldn't go. But not because she didn't let me, but because we have a set of goals and her career is on, it's her goals. And as a result, her career has asked enough of her that sometimes it's our goals. We have objectives in a year and we have priorities as a couple, and making sure that she has everything she needs to succeed in the workplace is one of our goals. And so when something in the household is starting to derail her professional goals, we as a couple try to align that. And sometimes that means I do things so that she can succeed at work. And if I thought that my ski trip was derailing her at work, her profession is a bigger priority to us than my skiing. And so the skiing would go away, but not because she didn't let me go, but out of respect for what her and our goals are as a couple. And so like, I just think that like, this whole wife aggro and stuff, I really don't like it as a joke. And I get that it's just a joke, but jokes have a tendency of setting the tone for what reality and expectations are, especially for people that are coming into that space and don't yet have formed opinions. So people that are getting married and all they've ever heard about married was the old ball and chain. Oh, she lets you game. I don't like that. You're going into marriage under the assumption that it's this uphill battle from day one. And it doesn't have to be. Like, my wife is my best friend, and there are things I do in my life that aren't convenient for me because they are good for the relationship with my best friend.
How do you do it, Brian? I can't, you put out content, you're doing all these things. How are you doing it? And it's like, I would always say, I get up, I get up before everybody else does. Like, I'm up very early and I'm going to bed.
That's super unhealthy to only get 7 hours of sleep, man. Like, I think 7, I think you're supposed to get like 8. I don't think they should do that. No fucking shot.
You're assuming that the moment that you stop for the night at 10 or later, that you immediately just fall asleep. So like, the other thing is, I think it's a lot less than 7. I think he's been running a lot less than 7.
It's like, also, I hope this is something that 7's fine. I don't know. To me, I need like more than 8, but I guess it's personal. Some people only need 3 or 4. But to me, I think it's important to be efficient with your time. Like, working and spending a lot of time doing something doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome is going to be rewarding. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome is going to be proportional to the time spent. So sometimes if you're spending that much time doing something, maybe working harder, you're kind of already capped on that. And it's about trying to reevaluate how you're working and like where you're approaching things from, like what direction you're approaching things from.
I think that's one of those moments. Any of you who have ever watched Asmongold for a lot of time, in between the memes and the laughter and the eyebrow raises and the getting overly upset about something little and all the things that make it the entertaining thing that a lot of people watch, I think that's one of the areas that he reveals why he's been successful at what he's done. Underneath, there is somebody that knows his craft, he knows what he does for a living, and he's very good at it. And whether you like him or not, the reason he's successful is because he's very good at his job. And that kind of like, if you're working harder and harder and harder, not getting results, take a step back and gather what does kind of Zach need to be doing to make Asmon as a brand more successful. Like, as much as he may appear on stream to be I haven't showered, sweaty gamer, here's my fast food cup collection, there is a professionalism that's behind him that maybe it came naturally, maybe it was intentionally built, but it is impressive either way. And he's really, like, there's a lot of wisdom that can be gathered from those moments where he just kind of reminds you, like, if something's not being successful, maybe you need to reevaluate where your effort is going Don't just keep dialing up the effort. You may already be at the appropriate level of effort.
Very late, and that takes a toll. That takes a big toll on anybody, right? And so I want to pour more of my time back into my kids and into my family, and this I think is a really good thing. They are like everything, and I'm looking, maybe one day they'll want to step into Final Fantasy 14, you know, and at that point when they're old enough, that might be my re-invitation back to the game. But when it comes down to it, I feel very complete with the way that Final Fantasy 14 ended. I don't like how it ended personally, and you can go watch that video if you're interested, because I'm not rehashing it here, but I feel complete. I feel very satisfied with my experience, and that's why this all falls down into, will they re-invite me back into the game? Ultimately, time will be the teller here, but no, I'm going to pour myself into that. I want to invest in my family. I want to invest in my health so that I can continue to be with my family. And that really ties into, like, I'm not streaming late at night. I can't keep getting up at this early. I'd rather be investing my time, if I'm going to get up early, and exercise and making sure that I'm eating right and meals are planned, so that
this is 100% the right call. Like, yeah, it is everything you say. Like, this is all 100% the right call. Like, you should definitely, like, yeah, if you're overweight, you're not in shape, you're not spending time with your kids, you're making videos about a video game you played for over 10 years, this is, you know, this is a come to Jesus moment. Absolutely.
Try to be there for them for as long as I can. And I think that makes a lot of sense, and hopefully people understand that. The second main reason is I'm going to keep investing into my comedy career. As a stand-up comedian, I'm having great success. Like, even outside of being successful in this space and having people show up for shows and keep getting invited back to shows, and just ultimately really having...
I do think that for somebody that has talked about not wanting to stay out late, comedy is a particularly hard hobby for him to have selected.
A wonderful time with stand-up comedy. It's incredible for my mental health. There is so much that I get to explore, and I get to be funny, and I get to just really kind of not have to worry about the internet and the rules of the internet. And if anybody knows what I'm talking
I think that there's always going to be rules, and you know, if you're part of, I'm sure comedy clubs have different rules and different types of politics as well, same as the internet does. You know, I feel like the internet does have its own set of stupid rules, but that's just a different set of stupid rules. It's not a new set of stupid rules. The real life has this too. It's just, yeah, worst comedian ever. No, I mean, like, obvious. What's funny about that? I mean, if he's doing well, if people are going out to his shows and, you know, he's enjoying it, he says it's positive, then, you know, then he's a comedian, right? I mean, I don't even see how this is even a question. Yeah, why meme on the guy for that? I hate this guy, to be honest. Really? You hate him? Holy shit. What did he do?
about. I made a joke in a video, and like literally, like obviously lots of positive, but the negatives always seem to float up, and it's those notes, those people who stated these dumb things about the joke, which was clearly a joke, that is the reason why I will never post my stand-up on the internet. And
what was the joke? What was the joke? Does anybody know what the joke was? I have to know what the joke was.
I think it was his Louis C.K. one.
Talks about himself too much. Who gives a fuck about you? Man, can you please stop? Are you really telling him who gives a fuck about you whenever we're watching a YouTube video that he made about himself on his own fucking YouTube channel? That's like, I swear to God, man, people on the internet, like a normal person walks down the street, they see a piece of dog shit on the sidewalk or on the grass, and they're like, oh, it's a piece of dog shit, I just walk by it. Somebody on the internet fucking sees a piece of dog shit on the grass, they're walking on the sidewalk, they get down on their hands and knees on all fours, and they start rolling around in the dog shit, and they're like, ah, this is so nasty, who would put this here? I hate this! Holy shit! Can you stop it? Can you fucking stop it? It's his own fucking show. Getting a comedian is gonna suck. Is as thin-skinned as he seems so far? Well, I think it just depends on what it is. I mean, some people are better at dealing with things in real life. Other people are better at...
It hurts. It hurts.
at dealing with things on the internet. So it's like probably like people don't confront you in real life the same way they do on the internet. It just doesn't happen. Now, obviously, has it happened before? Yes, it's happened before, but this is certainly not a trend. Yeah, I mean, people are generally more pleasant and more amicable in real life. Here we go.
Because people are just so hypersensitive and they just can't seem to handle certain things. And it's not even...
I really don't like how I don't know what the joke is. This is making me so fucking mad. It's like, did he make a joke about like a school shooting? Was it about like how COVID vaccine?
I really think it was about Louis C.K. I really think it was about gingers. I think that I believe that we were streaming the live letter, and it was like a 14-hour stream, and so we're just filling some dead time, chatting, having a good time, rocking our chairs, hanging out. And I believe he told a joke about a stereotype about Louis C.K. getting applied to all gingers, and he is a ginger, could disprove it. And I think that was it. I think it was just leaning into something that was an offensive subject and making a commentary on it. And that is seen by some as platforming the original bad behavior. And so then you run a really, right? Like if we discuss it, is that putting it to bed or is that elevating it? And then that debate starts around and around and around. And so like either way, one side is going to feel that you took it too far anytime you talk about a taboo subject, which is why there are certain subjects we just don't talk about. It's why in the United States, we don't talk about how much money somebody makes. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about whether like sexuality. And anytime we do, it is immediately uncomfortable because we have no tool set to help us actually navigate complex subjects, because the answer is just don't talk about it because you're on a different side than I am, or just don't talk about it because you're offending me. Like, and so we end up just not talking about it at all, which I don't know that we're winning.
Make you a cell phone tower for Brandon? Like, what are we talking about here? Is this like a race joke? Yeah, I mean, like, really? This sucks. I don't even know. Yeah.
Like an offensive joke. It's just, it is what it is, right? But that
I'm
just
so
kind of
upset
reaffirms,
about
like,
this.
I love being a stand-up comedian. I'm having great success being a stand-up comedian. Maybe I can get to the point where I can take the show on the road, and maybe more people can then be a part of that. And so
the cell phone thing, I think, is about the 5G shots, right? Because there was that correlation between if you have access to 5G, you get sick in 2020, which I think actually came down to if you live in a highly populated area, you likely have access to 5G. And if you live in a highly populated area, you likely got sick in 2020. You also likely have proximity to more Starbucks and more McDonald's. And so I believe that's the 5G reference he's making.
So the second piece of this is that I'm going to invest more time into my stand-up, into writing jokes. So again, family comes first, comedy, right there after that. And then the third reason, which also won't come as a shocker for those of you who've been following the content, New World is just so effing good. It is such a great game, and it delivers.
I can see why a lot of people hate him. I can see it so well. He's gotten to that age, he's in his upper 30s, lower 40s. He's probably one of the youngest New World players out there. And he's aged out of cat girls, and now he's in muskets, collecting saltpeter.
Why though?
And farming expertise.
Why? Oh, that's so funny.
Nice.
That's
what is
so
the
funny.
Deal with less than vendor?
Thank you, Amanda, for gifting a sub to Bundy.
Absolutely. Yeah, seems good to me.
On the things that I've been advocating for in the world of Final Fantasy, and that's where I'm drawn to. Like
I cannot wait to read the comments from people that are just absolutely fucking out of their minds that somebody would quit Final Fantasy XIV, the critically acclaimed MMO, fucking for New World. Oh my god, I feel like the fucking comments are gonna be better than the video. Holy shit.
Can't deny the fun and the community that we've had. And so all of those things, being somebody who has limited time, somebody who wants to spend his time and put them in the right buckets, leads me to saying, if I can play just one game, what game do I want to play? And this all came to a head when both New World and 14 had an update on the very same day. 14 deserves better than me having to force myself to play it for the content. And when that, because I was kind of feeling it and I was kind of questioning it, and I was hoping that maybe the updates would be staggered, so yeah, I could be a part of, both, because Final Fantasy's
I wish they did that too. I hate whenever updates happen at the same time. It's like you have a WoW update on the same day that there's a new Final Fantasy expansion. It's like, oh fuck, like what is this?
Game. Like, hopefully none of this comes across as like, oh, you shouldn't play Final Fantasy. Now, I'd still highly encourage you to check it out if you never played Final Fantasy. But at its core, I wanted to be in New World. That's where I want to spend my time when I have time to game, and that's where I'm going to spend it. And that's why.
Yeah, I can see a lot of people viewing this as a wrong opinion, but I think New World's gotten a lot better over the past year that it's been out, and it's improved a lot, and the numbers from people that it's retained proves that. It shows that. I think that it's fine if he wants to play. There are things that New World does that Final Fantasy doesn't do, and I think that's fine.
I'm leaving Final Fantasy XIV. My fear is that New World goes down the same route that World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV have gone down. We can see how that leads to issues in their success. Their success has eventually led to an issue, and shouldn't we all be blessed to have that level of success that the games, I think, have struggled with late in their life cycle? And so that's hopefully something that, as a player, that I can continue.
It's unfortunate that he's not more specific, because I'm actually curious to know what he's not happy about with those games.
Provide.
I think that would be a really dangerous road to dive down in a why I'm leaving post, because then people would focus on whether or not he's right or wrong in their opinion on those things. So is that a good reason that you do or don't want New World to follow in the footsteps of World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy? One of the things that the games have struggled with, in I believe Brian's point of view that I agree with, is that as they've aged, systems that were not designed to be around as long as they are, or were not designed to accommodate players with 10 years of playtime versus not 10 years of playtime, have been really hard. Right? How do you make something that can stand the test of time, that's resilient enough, sustainable enough, durable enough, that when somebody comes across it 10 years later, it's just as fun as it was then? And how do you let those players play together? Guild Wars has kind of solved their horizontal method, but then what happens is, after 10 years, why would you look for an 11th year, which is its own problem? And so, like, I have yet to see a game solve how to balance legacy content and current content in a way that feels good when the total library goes past 10 years, 15 years, whatever the number is. Somewhere in there, it starts to come off the rails. So I think that's what he's talking about. And so saying, I hope New World doesn't go down the same road, I feel it's inevitable. And like, that's not a bad thing, right? The mistake that World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy made is that they didn't shut the game down like Anthem. That's not a mistake. That's a win. That's a victory by every possible metric. So the idea that you are stuck with spaghetti code or old combat systems or something clumsy because you got to stay around and keep making the same video game after a lot of years have passed, and that you have players that have been around for that entire time, is a compliment to what you've done. It's a huge compliment, because players are more than capable of quitting. And so, like, I think that's what he's talking about. And so if that is what he meant by that statement, then saying that I hope New World doesn't go down the same road, I hope there's not too much stock being put into that bucket. Like, I just hope, because like it will, because it has two, I was once told, if we're just going to dig on marriage and people's views of marriage, I was once told that every relationship ends in breakup or death. That those are the only two outcomes. Breakup or death. And like, that's how games end. Games end in either death or this just ancient, decrepit, like, where things get clumsy. There's nothing you can do about that. And so designing a product to be profitable today off of the original investment you made doesn't make any sense, because you need to get people in. So you're always building today's product for the people of today so that you can make enough money to make it to tomorrow. So you cannot feasibly design a product for 10 years from now, even if you knew how to do that. And how the hell would you know how to do that? Look back 10 years. Best selling console in 2012. Huh. That was the Xbox 360. How the hell would an Xbox 360 development team plan for the crap of today? You can't. You can't.
Feedback for that game and make something new. I love that New World feels like it's a game that they're willing to take risks, and I really appreciate that, where in Final Fantasy's terms, whether it's Square Enix, a budget, or whatever, it's a game that just doesn't take risks. It's a game that we've advocated for risk taking, but either they're just too burnt.
I don't know if there's a lot of risks in New World. I feel like New World is playing a, like, I don't know, like, how much have they done that's, like, really risky? I haven't played a lot of the new patch and, like, some of the more, like, fine-tuned features, so I'll have to wait and see.
If New World is risky, then releasing a game is risky. New World, every concept in New World is a piggyback off of tried and true systems in any other game. So there is nothing that New World is doing that is brand new to all of gaming. There's nothing they're doing outside of maybe having access to spin up enough servers during launch that they could create a new problem for themselves to solve. Like, that's weird. So, like, I don't know that they're taking risks other than the fact that just everything they're releasing is new. And so by that nature, Ashes of Creation is taking risks. By that nature, Star Citizen is taking risks. By that nature, the new Riot MMO will inherently be taking risks because it's new. And so it's all going to be new. New. And any existing game, why would you gamble what an existing player base likes, that is existing, making you money, that is providing stable jobs for you and your employees and all that? So, like, no game reinvents itself if things are going well.
By the original launch, too scared, or from a financial perspective, it just isn't in their best interest. And I can respect that, but I wish they would. I wish 14 was a game that took risks, and it's just not anymore. It honestly feels...
I think if anything, World of Warcraft takes way more risks than Final Fantasy, and I don't think it works out for them. I think it's an answer of, we have a lot of ideas, and we have a lot more money than Final Fantasy, and I think that gets them in just as many bad spots as good ones.
And I'm sure this is going to be probably the most upsetting thing I say in this video, honestly feels like it's a game that's designed as a way to placate angry WoW players. It's a game that's set up to catch the player who gets so angry at World of Warcraft. Here's a nice place to land. And that's a great business model. Honestly, it's pretty damn smart. And at the end,
I mean, look, the thing is, I feel like every MMO is like that. I mean, there's the same people that stop playing WoW and they start playing... Like, there are all of the angry WoW players went to Final Fantasy and they got banned, and now they're in New World. And all of the normal WoW players that quit probably are either playing Final Fantasy, Lost Ark, or New World. So I think that's effectively, it's nothing specific about Final Fantasy 14. I feel like all of the games are like that. But the truth is, though, he is right that Final Fantasy 14 is a very differently skinned World of Warcraft, in the sense that it has a UI that functions relatively the same. You level up in relatively the same way. There are targeting features that are the same. AoE abilities. Like, if you play WoW, you understand a lot of the, like, just baseline nuances of Final Fantasy by default. It's the same as when I was playing Undecember, and I was like, oh, well, this is just like Path of Exile, and oh, this is just like Path of Exile, this is like Path of Exile, right? Whereas, like, if you go and play Lost Ark, there are a lot of things that you would not intuitively understand as a WoW player going into Lost Ark, and New World is probably somewhere in between.
End of the day, it's just not a game.
I think they're absolutely two sides to the same coin. So when people say they don't like one, but they do like the other, I really want to hone in on what it is they don't like, because it's usually execution. Because the base things are there. right? Adding new classes to play that effectively fit within existing metas, releasing battle content of different sizes and different difficulties at a relatively standard interval. Like the core concepts of what their plan is identical. The execution is where they differ. And when I meet people who have played one and not the other and know for a fact that they hate the other without having played it, I have trouble believing that, because how do you know that their execution is not a better fit for you if they are just two different executions of the same feature list?
That exist for me anymore, and that's perfectly fine. Not every game has to be for Brian, and despite my time with it, I don't regret any of the time I spent in 14. I don't regret helping people get into the game at all, but it's time for me to say goodbye, and those are the 3 reasons why I'm leaving Final Fantasy 14. So it's at this point we talk about what comes next. Brian, what about the controller guides? Brian, what about live letters? What about FanFest? What about you and Chris at Work to Game? How is the content going to be structured? Work to Game was always a collaborative vision, a vision of sitting down and discussing MMORPGs, vision of discussing video games overall, but obviously a passion for the MMO. Chris has a great...
I feel like there's no problem with having more people and having more games that you talk about on your show. New World does have, like, it doesn't have as big of an audience as Final Fantasy XIV, but there's a lot of people out there that are looking to consume New World content. And to be honest, because it's a smaller game, there aren't a lot of content creators that make content for New World right now. There's Damone Kim. I think that's the main guy who's doing New World content. Maybe a handful of other people, but other than that, it's very...
Yeah, BDLG, there's a couple. It's the same ones. You see them over and over. They're the ones that got to play in the PvP dev event. Is like a big chunk of them. Not exclusive, not exhaustive, but a big chunk.
You know, just random.
Love for World of Warcraft. He loves Guild Wars 2. I agree with him on Guild Wars, not so much on World of Warcraft, but we also share a handful of games. And so we're going to continue those discussions, and we're going to...
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Someone says, will we survive a content pivot? I think that yes. The truth is that these types of videos for a New World audience would be fine. This is totally fucking fine. I don't think a content pivot is that hard to do whenever you're transitioning from one MMO to another MMO. Also, this guy wasn't even ever liked in the Final Fantasy community anyway. Like, I always heard people talking shit about him to begin with. So it's like, I mean, was he really doing very well in Final Fantasy in the first place? Probably not. So
the reason we are successful, guys, the reason we're successful is because nobody likes us anyways. That's our strength. That is our unfair advantage. Other 14 creators have to deal with like people liking them and people respecting them. You don't want that. You want people to hate you. It's a huge strength in business.
So I would say, yeah, it wouldn't be that hard for him to transition over as long as the content is just the same degree of quality. That's about it. He's a notorious clickbaiter. Yeah. And so... yeah, we don't like that guy. Yeah, exactly. And so, like, New World players don't really give a fuck about that. Like, New World players, they don't like social media, okay? Half of them were born before it existed, so it's all fucking, all this new shit that their kids get into. And
where is this stereotype coming from that New World players are all boomers?
They have to constantly take their phones away from them. So, yeah, I think this is fine. This guy's going to his people.
To continue that show, and if you guys are interested in that, that's something that we're going to keep moving forward on. When it comes to the controller guides specifically, I've got 6 left to finish. I'm going to finish those. I started this. I want to make sure that everybody who's been waiting for those is able to get what they need so they can enjoy the job that they want on the input that they enjoy playing the game on. Hopefully that helps out. It always is very encouraging to me when I hear somebody, either they enjoy it, their kids end up playing the game and they're able to play with their family because controller's a little bit more easy to understand, I think, personally, if you've never played on mouse and keyboard. And then also for those of you who are physically impaired, who have some kind of, like inability to play on a mouse and keyboard, that I've been able to help out. So that means a lot to me, and I'm very glad that I've been able to help out. But the reality is I'm going to finish those. I don't think I'm going to do, if I ever play the game again, any kind of crazy Omni 100 or whatever they end up doing, namely because I think that really is a big thing that I didn't enjoy. I did it out of the love for the community, despite some of the community just being...
Oh, this guy leveled all of his characters up to 90? Is that what he's talking about? Like he said, Omni, yeah. Bro, fuck that. I mean, like, yeah, of course he burned himself out. Like, if that's not something that you want to do, then you're really not going to enjoy it. For me, I have like 3 characters that I
Leveling content in MMORPGs is hard to do well, especially do well in a way that you want to do it 2, 3, 4, 15 times.
like playing in Final Fantasy. Maybe the other ones are okay. Maybe one day I'll figure it out. The only thing to me is I kind of wanted to have all the tanks up leveled up. So like it's kind of like an Overwatch, for example, where it's like you want to know how to play all of the tanks so you can solve as many problems as possible with your role.
The absolute worst of humanity. I did it out of the love for the really good people.
Omni-Tank,
the parts of the community that I love. And so I want to finish those because I want people to be able to have that. Maybe somebody will step up and do controller guides, from here on out, and that'd be great. Maybe they'll simplify and figure out some things to do, bring in some really cool technology. That'd be great too, within the controller setup. I'll be very curious, again, looking for a reinventation, because they talk about another 10-year plan, and I don't know, it feels
So I've seen some things in the chat about like what is this invitation that he speaks of. So there is this idea, and it's not about getting like an email that says Final Fantasy 14 invites you. Like it's about what is that moment that reaches out to the community at large and says, hey, we'd love to have you come take a look. Just to the community at large, just says, we're trying some new stuff and I hope people enjoy it. And so I think it's like the idea of an invitation. There was some people saying, well, who disinvited him and how like egotistical that he wants like an individual invitation. That's not it at all. It's meant to be like that moment that you feel like, I think I'd like to try this game. And it might come explicitly through a content creator or a piece of marketing asking if you want to play the game and saying, click here to get started. But it also could just be through the general sense of, I've been taking an interest in this game, and this game continues to present itself as a game that would be fun to play, that people are saying nice things about. It looks easy to get into. And so it just kind of invites you naturally. It feels welcoming, like you're not going to have to just fight to get in. So I think that's where that term invitation, like when we use that, that's where it comes from for me. It's not about, I need Yoshi P to send me a handwritten letter in the mail.
Feels like it's complete, and I'm happy with where it was. So that's where I'm going to finish those. And then in terms of live letters and coverage of the news, I've got 13 plus years experience with this game. I think I can provide a lot of historical value and also a level of curiosity.
No, he should keep doing that because people will come back and they'll want to hear his opinion about anything new that comes out. In terms of like for his channel, it would be a good idea to continue covering the big events of the game. Like, that's what I do, is I always cover big events for every game that I've played.
That's what, like, Preach did for WoW and stuff like that. And I think, like, there was a lot of frustration when Blizzard cut him out of the onboarding process for Dragonflight, right? Not giving him beta access and stuff right away. There was a lot of frustration about that because it felt like, oh, you don't want the criticism of people who aren't already invested in your community. You can't take that. And it made them look really thin-skinned. So I do think there is value in people. There are people in the community that really only want to hear from people that are invested and they know are going to go through the thing they went through. So like, I'm not saying we should exclusively get our news and reactions through people who have quit. But I do think that it belongs in the fold with everybody else.
Is this a piece of content that would make me want to play the game again?
Watch him come back if something new gets announced. Well, that's fine. Like, was he not allowed to come back if he takes a break or he doesn't want to play it for a while? Like, he's like, well, we don't want you anyway. You get the hell out of here, you son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. You go play another game. You gotta play that New World. No, you get the fuck out of here. Rest in piss. You won't be missed, bitch. Fuck you.
If you guys wonder why all my original voice acting, when I started voice acting stories, sounded like various Texan accents, that's because there's about 20 of them. And as a fellow Texan, I appreciate that I could literally picture that person shaking the shotgun and walking off the porch. Absolutely brilliant.
However, and with respect to those of you guys who might be upset that somebody who's not playing the game is covering it, and we know that those people exist, I'll be looking for feedback. If it ends up causing too much trouble, too much drama, too many trees like hitting the window, I'll be sure to kind of take that into account and would be, willing to step away from that coverage if it became an issue where it was just...
Never fucking step away based off of negative feedback. If people are watching the videos, just keep fucking making them, okay? That's the only thing that matters. If people are making negative comments, ban them from your channel. If they're sending you negative messages, block them. You have every tool at your disposal to solve these problems. Yeah, there's always...
How many people do you guys think are on the Asmongold ban list?
Always going to be negative comments. You're always going to get people that are pissed off about what you're doing for whatever reason. Just fucking ban them. Most of the time, I'm going to be real, okay? 95% of the constructive criticism that people give online to content creators is not constructive at all. It's just noise. Throw it away and do whatever you think is the best option. Yeah, most people have no fucking idea what they're talking about.
Causing people pain. I'm not here to junk on your game and
some more of that wisdom, guys. It's in there. 37 minutes. We got 2 sentences of Asmon wisdom.
Kill your joy. Like, I'm a very joyful person, and I really want Final Fantasy XIV to do better and to be better. And it's unfortunate that as a game, it's become that. It's become a game where the idea that it could improve is such an insult to people, versus where in New World, like, saying the game can improve, everybody gets excited. Like, yes! Oh my gosh, imagine when we see this happen and when we can get this kind of content. Like, it's a very hopeful group, where in 14, it's a very defensive and in a way insecure kind of.
I think that's partially true. It's partially not true. Like, for example, whenever I suggested, like last year, whenever they did the the news thing, whenever I suggested that they do Mythic Dungeons, Mythic Plus Dungeons, stuff like that, I think a lot of people thought that was cool, and people agreed with that. I also said, and this is just a fucking fact, that WoW's transmog and collection system is infinitely better than Final Fantasy XIV's. Yoshi P knows this. It's just that they don't have the tech to do it right now. I also think that the world building in everywhere, ironically, except Shadowlands, is way better because you can go from zone to zone seamlessly without having to go through a loading screen. I think this is a huge improvement. I think it's way better. It's something that New World does better also. There's a lot of things in Final Fantasy XIV that could be massively improved on. I also think that there's a... like, I don't know what it is, but like, I always feel like there's like a 50 or 100 millisecond delay whenever I cast something to whenever it happens on the screen. This is especially true with interrupts. I don't like the way that plays. It makes me feel like I'm constantly living in Australia, and I'm not sure how to solve that. Are these things that would make me not want to play the game? No, they're not. But these are things that...
the snapshot server tick thing is definitely something that has to be adjusted to. And every online MMO is going to handle latency a little bit differently, and once they put that tone in game, because that's how players get used to doing, WoW, as they went through development, had to kind of bake some of that in for Classic, because Classic had things built in for the way machines and latency worked back then, that if you allowed them to run on modern machines and modern latency, would have broke the game. And so they had to manually build some of that back into the system so that it just functioned.
Are not good about the game. And there are many textures in Final Fantasy XIV that are lower quality. And there were people that got upset about me.
There's one right here. Right here. Look at the difference in how much texture there is here versus here. And they've talked about updating the ground effects so that they don't all fade in this exact same way. And starting to add more variety so you don't have the exact same cut in the tile there and there. And I bet it's 10 more spots over here where he's turning in this quest. Because it will make the world feel more immersive. You may not notice it right away, but you notice it when you feel the difference between two games. You notice it when you play one game and this little broken tile is not that exact same broken tile. You do notice it, but you don't quite put your finger on it. You're like, it just feels better. I don't know why, but it just feels better. So as they up graphic fidelity cannot hold you. A beautiful game that sucks, you will quit playing. So it can't be all about graphics. But at the same time, if you're trying to invite people in and you're trying to make people want to talk about this game, the further you get behind what the average graphics across the market is, the weirder it feels, right? So if you have the ability to soften this edge, so it's not this hard line, even though these bricks are clearly weathered, it might feel a little bit better.
About me saying that. And then fucking Square Enix was like, yeah, that's true. We're going to fix it in 7.0. So there you go, or 8.0. How I don't even know which one it's on right now. It's 6.2 or 6.1 right now. So it'll be 7.0. Yeah, so they're literally doing these things. I think that Final Fantasy players, in a general sense, are much more defensive about criticism, but at the same time, I don't think that they are completely delusional. There have been many times where I've offered, things that I think about the game, etc., and a lot of people have been like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure. PvP needs to be better in Final Fantasy. Feels a bit lackluster for me. Well, the PvP that they did, it was like Crystalline Conflict. A lot of people were really positive about it. And I think that that's important to see. I mean, if the people that are playing the game like it, then that's all that matters. Just because WoW players hate the game, so they don't try to defend it because they share the criticism. Yeah, I've said that before. Suffers from a lot of over-casualness.
I would say that, like, I do think 14's is very particularly vocal, but, like, go over to Bellular's comment section, go over to Preach's comment section when they're digging on the game, or when they're talking about something good that the community generally feels negative about, and see how they respond to somebody who simply disagrees with them. In general, the internet just allows us to be a little less empathetic and open our mouths and talk a little more often than maybe we would if we were face to face. And so in general, there can be just some anger that's on the internet that doesn't need to exist, but does, because the platform kind of encourages it.
It's the reason I quit. You get one ultimate per expansion and the 4 raid bosses every 8 months. It's really tough to find something to do after you do that. Yeah, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that WoW, in a lot of ways, kind of caters too much to the hardcore player. Like, Final Fantasy is absolutely a game that has hardcore challenges.
So I saw a couple people say we get 2 ultimates per expansion. That's not necessarily true, right? So we only got 1 last time. So, like, we don't know that 2 is the new norm until they can show us 2 repeatedly. Like, we know we get 4 bosses over 3 tiers, because that's not just true now. That was true last expansion, and the one before that, and the one before that. And so with the ultimates, like, I would say that has proven to be less than predictable. I understand that the reasons for the delay were logical. But, like, do we get 1, do we get 2? Is something that, like, I don't think it's totally crazy to say we get 1, because we only got 1 last time, and we got the... So, like, I don't know. I don't think that's totally, like, an unbased way of describing it to a new player until they have a little more history behind them. Just like Criterion, right? To say we only get 1 Criterion per expansion, we believe there's 3 slated. Do we get 3 every expansion? I don't know. Do we get 1 every other patch next time? Do we get 1 with the even-numbered patches, 0, 2, and 4? Do we get 5 next time? Like, I don't know, because, like, that's just something that we'll learn as time goes on. How often does Island Sanctuary get updated? I don't know. Do we get a deep dungeon every time? At the end of Stormblood, I would have said yes, but then now that we didn't get 1 with Shadowbringers, we're getting 1 this time. I don't know. It feels like we get them sometimes. More often than not, but not every time.
And they have, like, Apex accomplishments where, they have a number of, like, different mounts that you can get that are hard to get. Things like Necromancer, Lone Hero, etc. And then also Ultimates and Savages. And, there are many different types of hard content in Final Fantasy, but it's not like World of Warcraft, where, like, every patch is built off of the Apex, like, cornerstone high-end raid content. I don't think that's a bad thing, though. Like, it's not. I feel like also New World has done a very good job with that. New World has added in expansions to the game, whether it be like the Medley Fair or the Brimstone Sands, and these are not necessarily, like, defined by how hard they are, but just by what they add to the game, and I think that's a good thing.
Can I just note how good he is at referencing content by name in other games? When he criticizes Brian for using just, like, loose, like, oh, the routes that World of Warcraft and stuff have taken, that was really succinct. Like, that was really well said, and he noted exact achievements by name, especially when talking about the games that he's not as known for. Like when you look at World of Warcraft, he can just kind of throw that out there because he knows that most people that watch Asmongold understand that, but he can name individual content pieces in the 2 games that the subject has on screen talking about, leaving Final Fantasy but playing New World more with their time. Like, that was really impressive. I understand I understand there are people that don't like him, but respect the player, man.
If you're playing a game only for it to challenge you all the time, you're probably going to have to play more than one game.
I'm defensive. I always kind of was confused by that mindset, that the idea that you're playing a game that does change in its nature, but yet you're absolutely afraid of that community policing is, it just drives every good idea and even every bad idea. It's got to crush them all because we can't.
I wish I had some examples for that. You know what I mean? Because I think that most of the time I've watched Xeno's videos before. Obviously, I've watched 20 of them. And every single time that he's talked about the game and he's said suggestions, most of the people have been in agreement of those suggestions.
I will say that's been one of the common criticisms of late, as Brian's kind of slowly... This is not like a sudden departure from playing Final Fantasy XIV. In general, over the last expansion or so, he has taken steps back from content more often than forward. Sometimes he's taken steps forward, trying out Savage and things, but often he's taken steps backward. And when something like his Extreme Night gets canceled because of things outside of his control, he didn't immediately crave to put that back on the schedule because he didn't crave to play the game. And so, as he's taken steps back, one of the criticisms of late, one of the criticisms of Work to Game in general, as we aged, Work to Game's 6 years old. And so as we aged, once we got 2 or 3 years in, there was this why don't you guys try Savage? You don't have to clear it every tier, but why don't you try Savage? You don't have to clear Unreal every week, but why don't you try it? And there has this been idea that sometimes when Brian and I leverage things we'd like to see or things like that, we are using these more general phrases like Brian is here, and people, as you start to get bigger, that doesn't really fly anymore. It's not just a guy with a camera that has some opinions. They're like, I need some examples. I need some evidence. And as we've gotten bigger, there has been this shift from people like our opinions to people like our coverage or people like the spreadsheet streams, where we need to leverage that expertise to get the same respect that we got when we were smaller. And we're not huge, but it's already shifted to people want us to back up what we're saying. And so there has been some general frustration. Most recently, when Brian and I talked about gearing in Final Fantasy XIV, there was a lot of debate. And across the history of Work to Game, I would say that in general, it feels like about 60% of the community prefers Brian over Chris. And in general, I think he's been in about 70 or 80% of the videos compared to me. So I think he has been the majority shareholder in kind of the Work to Game vision. And I think coming out of this event, there will be a lot of people that think Work to Game quit Final Fantasy. So I assume over the next coming weeks and months, as I continue to play 14, I'm going to get asked over and over why I quit. Didn't I quit? Oh, I thought you quit. So I assume that's going to come up a lot. And so I appreciate that I've known this is coming. So I appreciate that there's some heads up there to be emotionally prepared for the fact that I'm not just going to get to play 14 as myself. I'm also going to have to play 14 as the part of Work to Game that didn't quit. But also a lot of the criticism in that gearing video was, it seems like Brian doesn't know how gearing works now, because there were times that he put out suggestions. I wish that gearing worked more like this, or I wish that gearing worked more like that. And my response in the video was kind of well, it kind of does. Or today when he said, I wish Materia drove up eye level, that would fix, that would be a way of alleviating the Criterion Dungeon not dropping more item level, because then the Criterion Dungeon dropping Materia would feel like that, or something like that. And in my brain, I was thinking, but I don't actually care that Materia doesn't update item level. If we're just talking clean UI, it should absolutely update item level. That would help with things like Party Finder item level filters when your BIS is a lower item level than the piece of gear you would need to equip to get into the party. So it would absolutely clean some things up, but it's not a true solution to a real problem. It's a solution to a UI problem. But you have to really spend at least a little time chasing Biss to understand that. And you don't have to have Biss. I have literally 0 Savage gear equipped right now. But I do think as we've gotten bigger, like these examples like this, it's something that I think he does very well with New World, of having these exact examples. And so I think as you get bigger in a game, Asmongold's just showing, like, as you get to this size, his ability to name exact examples when he's talking really show that it's no longer just an opinion that's his. It's something that is based on an actual trend in content or based on an actual event, which I think starts to say that, yes, it's still just his opinion, but he's probably not the only one that has it.
Yeah, everybody's been pretty much positive about that. This guy seems to dislike the community more than the game. Yeah, I think that's probably what it is. The community, the reason people dunk on this guy is because he constantly does what he's doing right now, makes dissent out and calls for change, isn't allowed to exist as a blanket statement, go literally anywhere, anyone see the reality, 6 of one, half dozen other, people have loads of different opinions. Yeah, I'm curious to know where these opinions are. You know, like what is an example of an opinion that the Final Fantasy community will not hear?
So story skippers is an example of something that the community in general has struggled with. I would say over the last 12 months, through people like Xeno caring more publicly and openly about story, through people like Rookery, or any number of people saying Moody Moomba, different people on the platform saying when somebody comes in that's a story skipper, Ponto saying that they're welcome to play the way they want to play. I think in general, the sentiment towards story skippers has gotten softer than maybe it was 2 years ago. It has gotten softer, but in general, I would say story skipping is something that there's a hard opinion against. The jump potions back in Stormblood had a massive cater against. The Criterion rewards, actually, that's something that people have suggested, rewards that people are for. So there's been a lot of people that are really on board with the Criterion rewards getting adjusted. I think in general, people are more and more on board with some of the balance changes for jobs next expansion, maybe shifting away from the 2 minutes window, because they're starting to see data of where that makes things like the 8th Savage fight of this expansion end a little poorly. And so I think there are times where the criticism is taken very well, and there are some very recent examples of that. There are also some examples where it's taken very poorly, but I think it is mostly about people that don't clear Savage asking for Savage gear, people that don't like story being asked to do story by the game, that it is mandatory. When people call for things like ultimate weapons to not just be locked behind ultimate, I think there are some very fervent defenders. So in general, in the last year, I would say most of the fervent defense that has been out has been people criticizing content that they don't do and calling for it to be different. My counter to those people would be that you shouldn't have to do something to have a valid opinion on it. You are welcome to your opinion regardless. I think what is important is that you make sure that the context is stated. As somebody that cannot find time for Savage, I do find it frustrating that I can't get Savage rewards, is a much more reasonable statement than they should make Savage rewards available outside of Savage, not clarifying that first part. That becomes really frustrating because you feel lied to when you assume, because the assumption is that they're talking from a point of knowledge on the content. The assumption is they do Savage and they're tired of that being the thing. So when Lazy Peon picked up Final Fantasy XIV and skipped the story and said it was a bad game, even though it's a narrative-based MMO, but did not make it clear, I play MMORPGs because I like PvP content, I like open world content, I like interacting with other players, and I'm not a big fan of narrative. If he had said that first, I think his original opinion piece of 14 that got all that hate and got taken down would have been fine. I think it's fine. But I think clarifying the point of view actually gets out in front of most of this. So I think that gets out in front of most of it. This last year, I think in general, there's been a lot of frustration with Endwalker. There have been frustrations with the way the narrative ended. There have been frustrations with what makes it into a patch versus what doesn't. There have been frustrations about the way things are various paced, or the launch quality, which Yoshi P has had to apologize for a number of times. So I would say in general, if you're saying that Brian is frustrated with the community at large, the last year would actually be a reason not to do that if he had not gone into the last year already frustrated with parts of the community that have been very vocal in the past. And so when you see people going out and like trying to get people kicked out over using third-party add-ons, the rise up against Pyro and all of that, I think those are really the last few remaining things. When people say that Asmon's not welcome in the community, or WoW players aren't welcome in the community, or story skippers aren't welcome in the community, people gating at the entry to Final Fantasy is probably the last remaining thing. Once you're inside the game and you're truly clearing whatever content you want to talk about, I think in general criticism's been received a lot better recently.
Let this game change. We have to, control the
the
narrative. And it's not for those reasons that I'm leaving. The 3 reasons I listed are the reasons, but I'm sure that those people will pop their head in occasion. Yeah. But you know what? That's the game that they play. But that's essentially my plan, and those are the reasons why Final Fantasy 14 isn't the game for me. I really would love for it to become a game for me again. I've debated regarding FanFest. I want to go because even if it's 7.0 isn't a re-invitation, I want to hang out with everybody. We haven't had a physical fan fest in a while, and it'd be really great to see everybody, to hang out with everybody, to share that experience, if not at least for one last time, one last hurrah. But I'll keep you guys up to date on what that plan looks like, because I don't know, like right now I have subscription and some of you guys are...
So if we back up just a second, there's somebody in chat here that says something that I think is also coming up around.
We haven't had a physical fan fest in a while, and it'd be really great to see everybody, to hang out with everybody, to share that experience, if not at least for one last time.
A little bit in the forums. There's been somebody, there it is, right there. Okay. So it took him 13 years to find out the game is not for him. Right? I don't understand this with games. We're seeing this as we go into Dragonflight. If Dragonflight is not going to be good next October or November, if it's not going to be in a healthy state, which it very well may not, there would be plenty of reasons to believe that Dragonflight as an expansion will be in a rough spot next November or October based on past events. There is a logic to that thought. But there's this idea that if you play now, then next November it's not worth it. These aren't jobs. It's not a job. It's not a relationship. It's not anything that you need to worry about the health of it long term. You can just enjoy it for the moment that it is. And so if you like a video game for the first 40 hours and then you don't like it for the next 4 hours and then you quit, you still got 40 hours of joy. So if he played it for 13 years and liked it and now doesn't like it and leaves, there's nothing wrong with that. So I've been seeing that kind of like sunk cost fallacy that like you should only play a long term, you should only join an MMO if you're gonna like it 10 years later, if you're gonna like it 10, 5, 30,000 hours later. And I just don't agree with that. Just like a video game is literally just straight up a transaction. You are paying them for joy, entertainment. And so as soon as you're done extracting entertainment from that game, go extract entertainment from another game. That's what it exists for. It is just joy. Just go get your joy. If you don't like a movie, watch a different movie. That doesn't mean I should never watch movies because I might not like one. I should never watch a movie with below a certain score or with a certain actor in it because I might not like it. If you don't like it, stop watching.
On what that plan looks like, because I don't know, like right now I have subscription and some of you guys were so generous, especially with my financial situation over the last couple of months, that were able to gift me sub time, and so one thought I have is continuing to keep my sub active as a part of going or trying to go to FanFest. I don't know if I'll get media access or...
I do think he's gonna get a little hate for that one, because he basically just said, I don't want to play the game, but I'm gonna have an active subscription so that I can buy a ticket. And there was some accusations. They let FanFest tickets go on sale so that existing players have an advantage over non-players to get to go, to help keep out scalpers and things like that. And there is this accusation of, well, then all a scalper has to do is have an active subscription. All somebody who doesn't really deserve to get to go and have one of these limited seats. I don't personally care, but I think that there is going to be some frustration if he gets tickets that you just say subscribe so you can go. Didn't you quit? there is this idea, like Final Fantasy housing, that anytime there's a limited resource, if this one person hadn't gone, we'd all be happy. I can just tell you right now, there's going to be frustration around FanFest because there are going to be people that saved up their money, saved up their PTO, and don't get tickets. It will happen. It could happen to me. It will happen. It will happen. There will be people that believe that because they didn't get to, the reason they didn't get to go is because somebody less deserving than them. As if there were 13,000 tickets sold, there's exactly 13,000 people that deserve to get to go. That's not at all how it works. It is a first come, first serve, and I can absolutely tell you. Also, the Kickstarter for his mom, that's the wrong person. That was Mr. Happy.
Or not. I mean, that's
I'm
obvious.
99% sure they're thinking of Mr. Happy. Because that's what I think of in that state.
A question. Maybe Chris will be the only one who gets media access. Who knows? But I'm not going to sit here and try to placate that and at the same time not be enjoying the content. I am not enjoying the time. But that's going to be the plan. Now, I have debated shifting my subscription into the Final Fantasy XI bucket because Final Fantasy XI means a lot to me. I'm debating on that. I have not yet reached a decision. You can let me know how you feel either way in the comments. I'll be very curious as to that.
You can play with Ninja.
But most of my time, if
He does play with Ninja. Those two do play together. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people that come over and ask how I'm streaming if he's playing with Ninja, and it's because there's two of us, and he's the one playing Final Fantasy XI with Ninja. I have never interacted with Ninja in any direct way, other than like when we do thank you streams, I read out his name when I get to his subscription in the total subscription feed of people that support the channel. That is the largest interaction that I have with Ninja. I've really enjoyed a lot of his takes and stuff in things like interviews over the year. Have never had anything. So hey, just so we're clear, how long has my sub been active in WoW without actively playing? So I literally have the game open right now, so now it's not a good example. So the only time that I've intentionally kept a subscription live, knowing for a fact that I would not play for a full month in WoW, was after all the lawsuit stuff. I quit the game, uninstalled, removed the launcher, and I think I had like 7 months of sub time. So in general, I have shut off subscriptions when I don't play. In Final Fantasy during Stormblood, I had a well-paying job, and I was frustrated when I had to resubscribe because I took a month off and then I had trouble turning my subscription back on. And so it has been on since late Stormblood. And if I ever took a break toward getting closer to Shadowbringers, if any of those months I missed, it was just left on. But it wasn't left on like in any weird like, oh, I want to like build up the months or whatever. It's just left on because it's really hard to resubscribe to 14 compared to other games. I've always found Blizzard really easy to give money to. They're very good at like, you could come home drunk from the bar and think, I want to play World of Warcraft. And you could wake up in the morning and your sub would just be active and the game would be installed and you'd be logged in, passed out in your chair. Like they're very, very good at taking your money. As opposed to Final Fantasy, you're gonna have to get on customer support and get your 2-factor removed because you accidentally left that on a phone you don't have anymore, and like it's the whole thing can just be a real headache. Nintendo and Square Enix are the two companies that absolutely do not want to collect dollars from people that would regret it.
In terms of gaming, is really going to be focusing in on New World. Obviously, I'm very excited and looking forward to the future MMOs as well. So I'll be looking forward to that, and that's something where I'll shift my coverage to. I don't know what I'll do yet with Ginger XIV. I might become an 11 channel, might just be a general Final Fantasy channel. At the end of the day, I there's no wrong answers. We're just...
Your point being that a sub active is fine, especially for 14. Yeah, I don't mind. Like I said, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. I think he's just being aware that like it may frustrate people that I'm talking about the game and they're trying to listen to me, and he's expressing his opinion having quit. Like I think he's just aware that our community has grown a lot bigger than us, and I think for an individual creator, your community growing bigger than you is a shift in the way you think about your channel. But Brian and I being communal from the very get-go, the entire reason Work to Game started was that we wanted to talk with people about video games and not just each other, and our wives were tired of hearing about it, and so we came to the internet to find people to talk about. So we're aware that Work to Game is bigger than us, and I think he's just trying to be respectful of that. At the end of the day, if Brian and I are still having fun co-living about Final Fantasy 14, I hope that continues for as long as that's true.
just looking for the questions to ask, and that's going to be the thought there. But I wanted to give you guys this message. I wanted to give you guys these thoughts, and wish you all the best, and thank you so much for all the support, especially within the world of Final Fantasy over these years. And hopefully none of this is surprising. Hopefully none of this upset you, but you can let me know one way or the other. Thanks guys so much again for your time. Thanks for listening to these words. Hopefully you guys enjoyed.
Oh
Hopefully
man,
I'll see you in my next video.
Oh,
until then, take care.
Oh, I wish he gave some examples, man. I really, really do, because I would love.
It's not a criticism I had when I watched it through this morning before going live. I do think it's a fair criticism.
To talk about this shit. I would absolutely love to talk about Amarath. Oh shit, thanks Amarath. Amarath rated me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like this, okay? Here's where I'm at, is that you have a lot of these situations and somebody feels like they're not part of.
I do think that to make the video that Asmon is hoping this would be, he would have had to script it out, plan it out, probably grab B-roll, turn it into like a whole thing. And for people that say he's just claiming for views for this, that would have just further invigorated them. In addition to the fact that if he's not enjoying making 14 content outside of discussions with me, then I really don't think he would have enjoyed making a documentary on what's wrong with 14 Farewell.
The community anymore. They feel like they're not part of. They're pushed away, people don't like them, they're mad about their jokes, etc. Let's read some of the comments on this, okay? I'm sure these comments are going to be very well-reasoned, just level-headed people that are just giving their opinion about the topic. First comment right here, good riddance. Likewise, but I do hope you continue to join the game. You see, you know what I would have done? I would have, if this is like, I don't know if this is some inside joke and these guys are actually friends, I have no idea. But if this is somebody talking shit, I would never respond to them. I think that it's always a bad idea to respond to comments that are negative. Because if you do that, then all you're gonna do is get negative comments. That's what happens. Let's go back over here, we'll read the other ones. Well, I saw this coming months back. I think the healthiest creator exit I've seen from any game. Putting in pursuit, something else. Applaud that. Yeah, I mean, all these people are generally actually positive. Wow. Look at this. Yeah, most people are okay. 5 kids say no more. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, look at that. What's this here? This is blow to me. Definitely gotta do whatever you gotta do. Yeah, I mean, that's just what happens. I mean, I think, honestly, like what happened with the guy is he's played the game for fucking the better part of a whole decade, and he's burnt out playing the fucking game. I mean, like, what, I mean, yeah, duh. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So, yeah, he was playing the game for a long time, he's burned out, and that's it. And then he feels like the community doesn't like him, he's like, ah, fuck this. Like, I don't think that's that big of a deal, man. Yeah, people are, I think people are blowing this out of proportion. But he says it wasn't a burnout. Well, it's not a burnout. It's just like, okay, I've done this for a really long time. Now what? That's not really burning out. That's just moving on. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it.